factoring by finding greatest common factor. That's what we're going to do in this video, and I have 3 examples here. But before we begin with these examples, I want to show you something. If I ask you to simplify this expression, you would automatically do the distributive property here. You would do x times 4x, and you would get 4x squared. And then you would do x times -3, and that would give you -3x. Notice how I got to this expression. I got there by using the distributive property. So now when I say factoring, what I want to do is I want to undo the distributive property, and what we want is from here I want to go back to here. So when we do distributive property, this is what I get by doing distributive property. And once I get to this, if I factor, I will get back to this expression. So that's what we want to do when we're factoring. I just wanted to make sure that you understand what we're doing when we're factoring. So let's do example 1. Here is my simplified expression. This came out of doing the distributive property like I just showed you. Now I want to get back to that original parentheses before we did distributive property. So this is what you do. You take the first term, which is 4x squared, and this is what we're going to do. We're going to list all the factors of 4x squared. So that means I'm going to write it as a product of factors. 4 is 2 times 2, and x squared is x times x. Done. Now I'm going to take the second term, 3x, and I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to write it as a product of factors. Now I'm going to line the factors up. So if I have x's, I'm going to line them up with the x's just so that it's more organized. I'm done listing the factors of these 2 terms. What do I do next? I look for common factors. That means, what factors do I have in the first term that are repeated in the second term? Well, none of the numbers I have. I don't have a 2 here. I don't have a 3 up here. I do have x's as a common factor between both terms. So this is the common factor, and it's the only common factor. What do we do with the common factor? Well, we write it outside the parentheses, and then we write the parentheses. So the common factor we write outside the parentheses, and then inside the parentheses, this is what I'm going to do. I look at whatever was left of the factors, the remaining factors that are not common. 2 times 2 is 4, times x is 4x. So that's the first term inside the parentheses. Then I have a minus in the original expression, so minus. And now I look at what's left in the second term. That's not a common term. I have a 3. And there is your answer. You're done. Now, if you want to go ahead and check to make sure that this expression, when I use the distributive property, I get this value, you can go ahead and check. So x times 4x, 4x squared, and x times -3, minus 3x. You did get back what you had originally, so that means that this checks out and that this answer is correct. Let's do the second example, 3x squared minus 15x. Take that first term and write the factors of 3x squared. So 3x squared is 3 times x. Then take your second term, which is 15x, and write it in factors, which is 3 times 5 times x. There you have it. Now let's look for common factors. Right away I can see that 3 is common between these 2 terms, and also x. So that is the greatest common factor. What do I do with that? Well, 3x, the 3 from here, the x from here, that is the greatest common factor that goes outside of the parentheses. Inside the parentheses, well, what's left here? Well, an x remains as a factor in the list that we had done, so x. Then I have a minus here, so minus. And then what's left down here? 5 is left down here. So 5 goes here. Okay? And I shouldn't have circled that. Let me go back. Minus, and 5 is left here. And this is your answer. Now you can go ahead and check just to make sure that what you wrote is correct. So we do distributive property, 3x times x, 3x squared, 3x times -5, -15x. And you did get back what you had originally, so this is correct. Let's go to the third example. 5x cubed plus 10x squared. Let's make a list of all the factors of 5x cubed. So that would be 5 times x, and 10x squared. That would be 5 times 2 times, oops, I missed an x here, times x times x. So 5 times x times x times x, and 5 times 2, which is 10, times x times x. Now let's do the common factors. Common factors here, 5 is a common factor between both terms, and I also have this as a common factor and another x as a common factor. So what is the greatest common factor? It's a 5, an x from this bubble, and an x from that bubble. That would make 5x squared. That's the number outside the parentheses. Inside the parentheses, what remains from the first term, x, I have a plus, so plus, and what remains from the second term, a 2. And this is your answer. You have factored by using greatest common factor. And you can go ahead and check just to make sure. 5x squared times x plus 2. Let's see. 5x squared times x, 5x cubed, plus 5x squared times 2, that's 10x squared. And this checks out. That is what you had originally. Go back and try these on your own and then come back and check your answer. Practice, okay? I will see you in the next video where we will factor the standard form of the quadratic function.